All right. How you guys doing? Welcome to Bros and Brews for another episode. Tonight, we are honored to have Glendale Mayor Ardy Kassakhian in the house.
Welcome, Ardy.
Basil, get closer to your mic.
Dude, bring the levels down a little bit on my microphone. You know I have a propensity to talk loudly.
It's not the levels, it's your headphone
Okay, bring the headphones
input.
down.
There we go. That's better. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's...
All right. You're getting a backstage view of what we do here as far as technical. Anyway, once again, we'd like to welcome everyone watching. Welcome all the regular viewers and all the new viewers, all 5 of you. How many do we have right now?
It's coming.
They're coming in. They're on the way. So tonight we're going to discuss issues having to do with the lovely city of Glendale, California, which most of you are probably, most of the 5 of you are probably residents of. If not, I'm sure you'd be interested because it probably, whatever happens in Glendale does not stay in Glendale. This isn't Vegas. So it may apply to your cities as well, and it will apply to your cities. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to my partner, Basil.
Welcome, Ardy. Thank you for being in studio tonight. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, 3B Auto Brokers. At 3B Auto Brokers, they bring the dealership to you. So make sure you visit them on their website, 3bautogrokers.com. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
I went right in without saying. I'd also like to thank our other sponsor, HiFX Entertainment. Where experience matters. DJ services for all occasions. Ardy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's exciting to be here. I don't do a lot of podcasts, so this is kind of new for me as well.
Awesome.
If I can have the mic levels on the laptop brought down, Basil, that would help a lot. Thank you.
So sorry. What a rookie mistake.
It's all right. It's only our 7th show. So.
Oh, wait. This is really?
Yes.
This is like brand new.
We just started.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, just started.
Whose idea was it?
Well, it was kind of a collaboration, I guess. I don't know.
No, don't sell yourself short. It was Harry's idea. I never wanted to do a podcast. I had many opportunities to do it. I just didn't want to do it. But then Harry's like, dude, we should do it. And we said, okay. So
I used to do, back in the day, as about 10, 12 years ago, I did a recorded podcast. I used to do recorded podcasts for an internet Armenian radio company. And actually, Basil was one of my guests on that show back in the day. And so I'm not a veteran, but I'm not a rookie at this. So I figured, why not, let's grind our gears and see where we go.
I think it's a great idea. I think there's a lot of things to talk about. A lot of untapped audiences that are waiting to hear about something that they can relate to.
Absolutely.
I feel like everyone's doing a podcast nowadays, like in Hollywood and stuff. Like everyone has one, so why not have more Armenian podcasts?
I actually want to bring this up. There was a kerfuffle on Next Door.
Oh, so we're jumping right in.
Let's just jump
All
right in.
we're jumping right in.
The beer's flowing. We're going to just go for it.
All right, let's go.
So I promoted the show on Next Door, right? And Next Door is now...
First bad idea. All right, but go on.
Next Door has become like Facebook's minor league system, on a local level. And
well put.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's all political diatribe, fightings with each other, and censorship. So I decided to get out there and said, hi, neighbors. We're doing a show called Bros and Brews. Our next our next guest will be the mayor of Glendale. If you guys would like to tune in to find out how the state of the city is going, if you want to ask some questions, go right ahead. There's always that one Karen that will mouth us, thanks for alienating 50% of your audience with the bros. I won't be watching. And then everybody just jumped on her. I'm like, get a life, man.
I think it's like kind of when we live. I actually, I don't like the term Karen because I actually know Karen, and I know some guys who are named Karen and they are called Karen.
That's
so
right.
I'm particularly sensitive to that name, but I hear what you're saying. I think everyone is very, very sensitive nowadays, or is quick to jump on someone else, and it's kind of like the times we live in.
Yeah, sadly.
If I could ask the viewers right now to share the stream, Tell your friends. Let's get our numbers up. We are going to be discussing a bunch of very important issues tonight,
Yes.
so I'm sure they'd be interested in watching. So,
If the intention was to have me on to get your numbers up, I could have told you before I came on that no one's gonna.
Not at all. Not at all. There are. Now we have other more popular people than that. No, I just being old friends. I wanted to get you on because there's a lot of hot topics we could talk about.
Absolutely.
In the city, and I want to congratulate you on your city councilship and your mayor appointment.
Thanks.
Very well deserved, by the way. You've been in politics since college, bro. I mean, we go 25 years now, and Ardy's always been into politics, and now he's mayor of a big city in California. So I mean, kudos, man.
Thanks.
How did you? Because when we were in college, we were just drinking and just going out with chicks and getting drunk. You were canvassing for politicians. You were interning.
and I'd like to thank you for hiring me for the ASA dance that you guys did.
Oh yeah, we
So,
were reminiscing. DJ High FX.
Thanks a lot.
One and only.
So the viewers, I'm sure the viewers would like to know how you got your start in politics, man.
So, I mean, when we were in college, it was right around the time. I mean, I've said this before, and I think people may be a little tired of hearing about how I got into this, so I'll try to keep it short. But it kind of relates to what's happening nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an Armenian American following what's happening in Hayastan, what's happening in Artsakh.
Yeah.
In the 90s, you had just had like the ceasefire in the Nagorno-Karabakh and the Artsakh First War.
That was our senior year in high school.
Yep.
94.
And it was like times were like real, like things that were happening were real. Like I remember hearing about the liberation of Shushi.
That's right.
And it was interesting because you had a whole influx of Armenians who were coming to the States from the former Soviet Union.
That's right.
And they really, were having a hard time adjusting, acclimating to
That's right.
America.
That's right.
And I remember there was a lot of nasty things being said about Armenians.
Yes.
By non-Armenians, by Armenians who'd been here longer than the newcomers. And it was kind of a moment for me in college at UCLA, realizing that as someone who kind of straddled both worlds, like was both born in the U.S. and was Armenian. I mean, my first name is Ardashes, right?
Right.
Doesn't get more Armenian than that. And understanding how American society works, but also understanding the culture from where these people came from, to be kind of a conduit, be an ambassador for the community, to be outspoken about it. And so, I started becoming engaged in politics because at the time there weren't a lot of Armenians in politics. And even though politics was the channel that brought me to where I am today, I like to think of myself as a public servant, not a politician. I think politician has more negative connotations. And by the way, there's politics in everything, right?
Right.
There's office politics, there's house politics, politics in the home between mom and dad and kids. I believe that I strive to be a public servant. So I look at myself as doing something for the community, doing something greater than myself, being a representative to those who don't have a voice or who struggle to have a voice. And so that's what kind of drove me to it. And that really comes from my parents.
Yeah.
And I gave a talk to a group of Boy Scouts who had come to, a bunch of scouts that had come to visit City Hall this last Tuesday. And I can encapsulate how I got involved through a quote from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
great.
noticed that there's like a lot of like
With
Capcom
great-
Marvel stuff. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Or, some other folks have said, like I think it was JFK who said, to those to whom much is given, much is expected.
That's right,
In
yeah.
return. So I think that's what drove me to it, and it continues to drive me. It's my driving force. If I'm in a position where I can help others, I will try to do that. For some of your audience who may not know much about Armenian culture or history, there's a great poet, Kassakhian. He has a poem, and it's called Partsyatsir. And in it, there's a line that's also used by the Hometman Scouts. It's their motto. It says Partsyatsir and Partsatsur. Rise and elevate others.
Rise and elevate others.
So that's kind of how I got involved. I mean, there's like little paths here or the path not taken.
Before we get too deep, I'm just interested. I don't think I've ever asked you. Coming out of college, what was your first political endeavor?
It was actually in college. I'll tell you. So what really got me engaged and then plugged in was, I was at UCLA and I was involved in the ASA, and we were planning our next big party or dance, which, whether we hire DJ High Effects for one dance or for all our dances. And the Big Bear trip, who's going to bring the Horvats or whatever.
Right.
And I remember like that year, it was I think 97, and Professor Hovhannisyan called us in, Professor Stepan Austrian. They told us that the Republic of Turkey was going to try to donate $1.5 million to UCLA to establish a chair of Turkish studies, which was essentially going to be used they were going to use UCLA as a platform to deny the genocide and legitimize genocide denial. So that got me engaged in trying to educate the student campus about, the historical facts of the genocide, why engaging in this relationship with a country like Turkey was a bad idea. And the vote that took place in the history department to whether accept that $1.5 million or not, the figure of $1.5 million, the irony of it not being lost on anyone, that vote passed 18-17. It was
that wasn't unintentional, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't. It was, so the 18-17 vote, the fact that it was a one vote difference really made me aware of how important it is to show up, to voice your concerns, to participate. And then that led to an internship in Washington, D.C. I went and I interned for members of Congress, and I came back and I realized Armenians were starting to get active and involved. At the time, Rafi Manoukian was running for Glendale City Council. Larry Zarian was coming off of council. So my whole goal was just to make sure that Armenian Americans had a seat at the table. We pay taxes.
Yeah.
Glendale is a great city in large part due to a lot of the people who came before us, but Armenians have kind of made Glendale what it is today.
Yeah.
And, to not have a voice, not have representation was something that was very troubling to me. So I've now, that was like my first exposure, going door to door, registering voters. I remember I once registered a woman to vote who was born in 1895, Armenian woman living in Glendale, like in an apartment, right?
Wow.
And she was born in Iran, and it was like, she had probably never voted in an election in her life.
Yeah,
She must have been over 100 years old doing the math.
Probably, yeah, she was. She was over
Wow.
100 years old. Yeah.
That's
And
insane.
and when we did the math, we were like, this is probably her first
And last.
and unfortunately could be last election. I mean, and that was monumentous. I was like very excited to help her vote in her first election.
That's insane. That's actually amazing too. I was just going to say, Basil just typed it. We will take question and answers later on. We do have some topics we want to get to first, but you guys stay tuned. We will get to your questions. So, Basil, you did want to bring up a certain topic, so I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead.
Piggybacking on Ardy's post about the 90s about Armenians being treated as racially profiling and discriminated against, I want to bring up this subject right now that happened last week about these flyers all over Beverly Hills. Some bastard posted all this stuff, basically says Pakistanis, Israelis, Turks, Azerbaijanis, they're going to annihilate Armenia off the face of the planet. This is where I have the issue. I mean, that is scary enough. I'm pissed off about that. What pissed me off today was Beverly Hills PD said it falls under the First Amendment, that they can say what they want, and it's not classified as hate speech. Well, fuck you, okay? Respectfully, fuck you. And the police chief of Beverly Hills,
My question would be, what does classify as hate speech?
well,
if
anything against
inciting
Israelis and
violence
Persians in Beverly Hills will classify
does
as hate
not.
speech.
So let me get.
The First Amendment
So, as
clearly
Mayor
states.
Ardy, how would you have handled this situation?
Okay, now we're getting heated.
No, that's fine. I mean, I first would have. I would continue and not use f-bombs, but like besides that,
He's the one that'll use f-bombs. I won't. So
I think there are many good people that work in the city of Beverly Hills. I think that this was. There's a learning opportunity here. I've actually been in communication with folks from the city of Beverly Hills about this. And we're going to meet about this, and they feel very bad about what happened.
I'm sure they do.
So here's where I fall on this, right? Like, first of all, it was specifically, I think, referencing the Republic of Turkey, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and Israel.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, by admission of the and some people in the Israeli government, but from the admission of the Azeri government, these were three of the countries that helped Azerbaijan during its most recent attack on the civilian population of Artsakh.
Yeah.
And Azerbaijan continues to blockade the people in Artsakh. For those who are watching, I actually am wearing my
System of a Down shirt. Yeah.
or Artsakh with
Yeah.
the We Are Our Mountains monument and the Artsakh flag, and I try to wear it as much as I can to rep the cause and draw attention to it.
Yeah.
And so it was saying that they were going to wipe Armenia off the map,
map, yeah.
inshallah, God willing, right? And that was
Yeah.
posted along the pathway of the demonstration that happened in Beverly Hills, and then on the path of the demonstration that was organized by the AYF that went from the federal building in Westwood on Wilshire all the way to the Azeri consulate in West LA as well. And so, I mean, here's the thing about free speech. Yes, it does afford people to say all sorts of terrible, ignorant, racist things, but this was something that was calling for the wiping out of a country and a people.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think that needs to be dealt with more severely, in the sense that even if you say, look, we live in a country that affords you the right to say things, we do not, as a city, condone this type of speech. And we need to, find out who did this, try and make them account for this somehow, draw attention to it. I mean, we live in this era where people get canceled for saying all sorts of things.
A lot less than what was on that post. A lot less.
So I think that
Yeah.
there's that aspect to it. Then there's also the aspect of it that the Armenians may feel like more assaulted than before. And let's also be fair and say that we're living in an era right now where the lid off the jar of hate speech has come off.
Yes.
It's towards Armenians, it's towards blacks, it's towards Asians. Somehow or another, it's just, there's a lot of crazy out there nowadays, and it's worrisome, because some of it is just free speech.
Yeah.
Some of it is a guy that walks into a place with a gun or something and decides to act upon that crazy speech.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, we need to take every single comment like this seriously and investigate.
I'm 100% on board, but here's what I would say, and I know this is a little bit of maybe the cynic in me, but had it been, instead of wiping Armenia off the map, had the word Armenia been replaced by wiping Israel off the map, well, do you think we would get the same response from the Beverly Hills mayor, police department, not everything? I mean, let's just be real.
Great analogy.
I mean, I think that it's hard to speak about hypotheticals. I would hope that people who are good people of good conscience, who understand the importance of protecting our rights as Americans. First of all, let's just be clear here. I know we're talking about this in the context of an Armenian, lens, but it's really about Americans. Like, I'm offended because I am raising my child in America as an American citizen. I'm an American citizen, and I don't want my child to live in fear.
That's right.
Right? And so whether it's about Jews, whether it's about Armenians, whether it's about Asians, like, everyone needs to have, like, we treat everyone with dignity and respect. That's what I've always believed. The golden rule: treat others how you want yourself to be treated.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so the question is, whether it would be or not, it's hard for me to say. I will say that there are times when Armenians are treated with a double standard, and there's reasons for that. We're an ultra minority, right? We're a very small segment of the American population. We struggle to get our story across. It upsets me that there are, nowadays you see, and what's happening in Ukraine is an atrocity. It's terrible, but you see a lot more people aware about what's happening in Ukraine than about what's happening to the 120,000 people in Artsakh. And in part because, the media has an unfair amount of coverage about one versus the other. So it's part of what's in the American media narrative, right? Those are all things that come into play here.
Okay.
It is partly because we're Armenian. It's also not just because we're Armenians, because of greater forces out there and things that are happening, and also because we're not as engaged.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
Armenians are not on the playing field. One of the things that I learned when I was at UCLA, when I went to Washington, D.C., and I came back, I saw that there aren't a lot of Armenian Americans working on Capitol Hill, interning on campaigns. To this day, when the presidential cycles come around, like, you maybe have one or two Armenians involved on campaigns, and then everyone gets happy and says, "Oh, I know him, he's my cousin," or "I'm related." But why is it that we're satisfied with the one or two people? We should encourage our youth to get more involved in American government, in the democratic process, in the country where we have the right as citizens to be.
Sure.
And then if we're ignored, we can say, you know what? the cards are stacked against us.
It's not our game, though. I mean, Armenians and
Yeah, but that needs to
politics-
change.
You gotta make it your
That
game.
needs to
You
change,
gotta make it your
Basil.
game.
I agree.
Well, it's like the entertainment industry, right? In the 70s and 80s, the Armenian names would always be in the end credits as second grip, best man, best boy.
Except for Mike Connors.
Well, all exceptions aside, but we were mostly behind the scenes, right?
Sure.
And then the 90s, 2000s came, and our generation started becoming actors, directors, producers. So it was actually kind of cool to see that. So
Right.
in that context, yes. Our children could be in politics more, and the next generation could be involved in politics. So
And we should be. We need to create that farm system.
Getting back to the actual the event in Beverly Hills, what can we do other than obviously contacting the Beverly Hills mayor's office, the Beverly Hills Police Department, and maybe even putting together a little protest? What else can be done for our voices to be heard, so that they know that this is not okay?
So I can tell you that I'm telling you this here now, that I've been contacted by the leaders in Beverly Hills. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a conversation. I'm confident that it will be a positive outcome. And so I would just say, stay tuned. I don't know if there's any need for protests right now. The proper channels are at work.
Okay.
They realize that they could have handled this a lot differently. I think that, look, I will also say that, as people when I say this is going to be a teachable moment, right, an educational moment for them, we have to give people the opportunity to atone and learn from their mistakes and do better. And that's not just in this instance, but across the board. I mean, there's so much of this cancel culture in America where people are so quick to jump to
This needs to stop.
indignation, and we have to say, okay, you messed up. So I have a young kid, and we were talking with Ara about parenthood earlier before we came on. One of the things I try to teach my kid is that when they do something that maybe we don't approve of, it's not just to say I'm sorry and then revert back to the same behavior, right? Say I'm sorry and how can I help?
Yep.
So I think the how can I help part is missing in a lot of American culture from everything, from the entertainment industry. And it's like, okay, so I made a mistake. Sometimes you will pay for that mistake, but in addition to paying for that mistake, how can you make things better?
Absolutely.
And I think that, right now, I hope that I'm confident we're going to have a good conversation. I know the city manager in Beverly Hills personally. She used to actually work in the city of Glendale. She was a department head. She's very understanding and knows the background of Armenians. She was so we'll see what comes of it, and I think that will be.
But do you think it was right for the police chief to say this falls under the First Amendment?
I don't know if the police chief said it. I don't know if it was someone who works for him that said it. I think what it was just a kind of throwaway knee-jerk reaction to something that maybe they were not that familiar with. And our goal now has to be, as a community, to educate them as to why this matters. I mean, here's the other aspect of it, right? There is the Turkish consulate is in Beverly Hills, and every year there's a demonstration.
West Hollywood, close.
No, I think it is. I think
Is it
it's in
Beverly Hills?
Hills? Yeah, you can look it up
Yeah,
online.
it's fine. I mean, it's right there.
It's actually
Wilshire,
on the border.
border of West.
Crescent Heights, west of Crescent Heights is Beverly Hills. San
Right.
Vicente area is Beverly Hills. So they're.
So I think that when we talk about Armenians demonstrating, even with the demonstrations that have happened in Artsakh, it's one thing. It's okay to express your frustration and yell and demonstrate, but if you're not also educating and informing the audience that you're targeting, what do people? I mean, think about how many protests you've probably driven by or walked by in your life, and you're like, "What's going on?"
What's happening?
I remember at UCLA there would be protests every week about some different issue by some different group. We need to build those bridges to different communities, including organizations like the city. I know there's Armenian businesses in Beverly Hills that can contact their elected officials and say, hey, this is why we're concerned about this. And, we can move forward to a better place.
The problem, Ardy, is now, given the political climate of this country, there is no discourse anymore. And I blame that on media and social media for causing the schism between people. I mean, the political landscape in this country has caused families and family members not to talk to each other.
Right.
From 2016 to 2020, I support Trump. You're a fascist dictator, commie Hitler wannabe. I don't want you in my house anymore. Dad, I was only kidding. Well, that's exactly what happened. Families stopped talking to each other, family members. So friends, family members, stuff. There was a massive, parting of the ways. 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, there was discourse.
So
I respectfully disagree. Yeah. Let's talk.
But there was something that was happening back then that isn't happening now, right? Back then, people went to common sources of information, so we could all kind of agree on what was happening in the country. Nowadays, and I challenge your viewers and listeners to, and do this as an exercise yourself. Go a week by reading the only news source being either Fox News or go the other direction, MSNBC or CNN, and then see what your view of what's happening in the country is. And each one is skewed towards a particular audience, right? So what ends up happening, and this happens a lot on social media as well, and especially a generation like ours that's still on Facebook. I don't know what the kids nowadays are on Snapchat or whatever, but like
they're on a Chinese propaganda TikTok.
Or TikTok, yeah. So what? But here's the thing: all those things are driven by algorithms that drive information to you that programs you to spend more time on those sites, on those whatever it is, apps.
Sure.
When that happens and you occasionally see an outlier, someone that disagrees with you or doesn't validate your already established opinions or evolving opinions, you unfriend them or you block them.
Exactly.
And so you create an echo chamber of people that only think like you, that then just reinforce and give you back your opinions. And that's not healthy, whether you're on the right or the left.
Absolutely. Critical thinking is frowned upon right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's frowned upon. I don't think even people understand what critical thinking is.
Absolutely right.
And I think that it has a lot more to do with how our society is structured. There's now an AI program that helps students write like essays, and it's like, so where does the learning come in, right? Like when I don't want to sound like an old back in my day we used to actually
get off my lawn,
right? But like if kids are only going to college because they're told like it's something you have to do in order to get the gold card or the VIP card to get into society to get a job, but you're not learning anything, you're not learning critical thinking, then I worry about the future. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit more hopeful. I think this is just like kind of blip. We will learn to adjust. I think there's a lot of good things about technology as well and information. But yeah, there are some troubling signs. And one of them is that isolation or that kind of echo chamber that we create.
So I didn't know this up until a couple of months ago. We all know who Richard Dreyfuss is.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Richard Dreyfuss, I killed a shark. Anyway.
What about Bob?
Richard actually is spearheading an initiative now to bring American civics classes back to the public school system. I had no idea they took civics classes out.
I was just going to say, I didn't know they took
Well, they did, yeah, they did. They've taken them out for a while.
But what's the reasoning behind this? Because in my opinion, they're making kids, I'm not going to say stupid, but not informed about how politics works anymore. Yeah. My kids are 7 and 4. I show them Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a Bill. You're laughing, but we grew up in that. Oh, sorry, Ardy. We grew up in that generation, and we learned at the age of 7 how a bill becomes a law.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get older, you realize it's political action groups and lobbyists and favors and backdoor deals. But it was a very clever fairy tale. It was a clever fairy tale in the 70s, right?
Right.
So my point is, why are they taking civics classes out?
Before Richard Dreyfuss got engaged in that. Former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor had a big program on that as well. That's something she was very involved in, is teaching civics to younger generations of Americans.
Interesting.
And civics went away in California, I think at the time when the UCs no longer required it as one of the requirements for entry into the UCs. And look, here's the thing, and this goes back to how public education is structured and what we're cutting, like education, every time times get lean or bad, like it's like a little salami, like we slice off little things and we lose civics education, then we lose wood shop and metal shop, and then we lose driver's ed, right? And then we turn around and we're like, oh, why are people driving so crazy and so bad? Or, how come we don't have people to do the basic jobs in manufacturing? I think that it and then what do families of means do? Many of them pull their kids out and put them in private education versus fixing some of the issues and reinvesting in our kids and in public education. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues here to go into, but yeah, civics education is one place to start. And I can tell you some of it is also that our systems are so complex that even if I took AP government in high school, I didn't know how the city of Glendale works. I didn't know what a city manager is. I know you guys have me on here as the mayor, but the mayor is a symbolic post.
Yeah, it's
like
a city manager.
I kiss babies and
That's awesome.
And I cut ribbons and
you get paid to kiss babies and cut ribbons. That's
So
awesome.
this is something, actually, I want to segue into this. A lot of people
Just a
don't
fun
know this.
fact: a 10-year-old Harry Ohanessian was in a movie with Richard Dreyfuss as an extra.
Really?
It's called The Buddy System. Look it up.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll look at that.
I was gonna say Mr. Holland's Opus.
That was a great movie.
I was 17 or something at that point.
That was a great movie. No, a lot of people are misinformed about city council members for small towns.
Yeah.
The Glendale City Council is not a full-time position.
It's not a full-time position. The whole structure of city government in cities of our size and smaller is based on the corporate structure model. So in a corporation, you have shareholders. Well, in a city, the shareholders are the voters, right? They are the ones that hold stock in the city. They vote for a board of directors, just like they do in a corporation, and the board of directors then hires a CEO. So the board of directors is a council, and the equivalent of a CEO, who is the actual person who runs the company, is our city manager. So our city manager is answerable to us, and all of the department heads answer to him. So the police chief, the fire chief, the public works director. Now they come to council every week and transparently in open session discuss what policy initiatives they have, what plans, how we're going to spend money. We can't do that privately. So it's done so the shareholders can be aware of how how their system works. But it's a very limited system. Like the mayor, city manager system of government, at least in Glendale and some other cities like us, like in Burbank, even in Pasadena, Montebello is a very limiting system.
That's right.
So when something bad happens, God forbid something were to happen, and by the way, I think we have a very good police department, but let's assume for our argument's sake, we have an issue in the police department. I can't call our police chief and yell at him. Yeah. It's not how it works. I can call and yell at the city manager, and even then, like unless two other council members feel the same way, it's just me being upset and pissed off.
That's right.
So you're right, Ara, in the sense that most people don't understand how the government works. They don't understand why sometimes it doesn't work or there's dysfunction in it, and most importantly, how they can appropriately engage government, other than coming and yelling sometimes.
Exactly. Because as opposed to LA, for example, elected officials, same as city council members, however, they do not let you have another job. Councilman is your full-time job. So that is
your job full-time.
It's your full-time job. Okay. And then, you can't be, obviously you have to be running for mayor. Okay, that's why Karen Bass won this last election with Caruso, and so a lot of people don't
shocked.
understand.
You didn't put quotation marks around one.
It's moot point at this juncture.
What have I walked into?
Moot point at this juncture. I'm not even going to traverse that road. But the point is, you get to certain areas. The city council votes on some stuff, and you know it, and I know it as a comic too. You can say great jokes, you can say bad jokes, and the audience will hate you for it. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, in city council as well, because the policies you guys are implementing, people are going to like it, and most people are going to hate it, and then they're going to vent, and they don't realize how it works.
I'll tell you when people hate it. No one likes the cost of anything going up.
Of course not, but you got to run a city.
No one likes the cost of anything going up, and we just dealt with that recently with our, we're looking to do a cost of service adjustment on our trash rates.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that either, Ardy.
Neither are my parents. Neither are my parents. You know how awkward it was this year, like to go over around the holidays to my parents' house, and my father was like, "What is this? Why?
Do something."
Yeah, and I was like,
Speaking of rates going up, we were just talking about this off camera before we went on, and this is not just a Glendale issue. This is pretty much a nationwide issue, especially in California. Gas bill.
Yeah.
Everyone's.
I have my theory behind that.
That's funny you would say that because I said the same exact words.
Can I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Electric.
Aliso Canyon lawsuits, and I'm just going to stop it there.
Okay. All right. Well,
they paid out so much to everybody in Porter Ranch, Northridge, Granada Hills, Chatsworth. They stiffed everybody for 2 months.
Nationwide, it's going to affect that?
Nationwide. It was SoCal Gas.
I get it. No, what I'm saying, but the bills are going up nationwide.
I think it's a combination of a number of things, and if you were to read the news and take whatever is written there as face value, or at least as the beginning of an explanation, we had an extremely cold winter. Everyone knows that. That one is not fictitious. There's more people with greater demand for natural gas for heating. There were supply chain shortages, and we've had some. I mean, you guys are in a car industry, and you know that better than anyone else.
That's right.
Now, some of that is actual. Some of it is when people see the supply chain fixing itself, they're like, we can probably string this out for a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
No one's like immediately like,
Right.
supply chain let's fix this.
Drag
and
it
then,
out.
And then lastly, part of that is, the war overseas where resources are placed, and I read that there was supply issues in Texas that had affected things nationwide. Mm-hmm. So I will say that we should wait and see what happens. I know that the gas company had issued notices saying that prices will potentially come down. I think, there's a lot more attention and scrutiny. And definitely people are upset because the increases were exorbitant. I know mine was the multiple hundreds of dollars. I don't want to go into specifics.
Yeah.
I mean,
Percentage-wise, it's anywhere from 350 to 450.
It's all right. We all got
Percent.
those. We know how much it is.
It's insane. It was insane.
It makes no sense.
Mine was
the good
about
news is-
150% more than what it was last year.
Oh, yours is on the low end if it's only 150%. I know people that, personally, 350 to 400%. So, I mean, supposedly, next month's bill are going we will see a slight decrease. So let's see what happens. We'll know when we get our bill next month. So, as far as Basil, you had a couple things that was.
Well, I want to get into a couple of the issues that we have at the city right now.
And pertaining to like Glendale strictly is what we were talking about.
Well, a hot topic on next door was the Grayson power plant. Yeah. You want to discuss that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. Why don't you explain to the viewers what we're doing with and then see what the processes of doing that and how much it's going to cost, because a lot of people are worried about the cost it's going to incur on the city to go green.
Well, it's gonna cost us to meeting the demand for electricity, regardless of how we do it, is going to cost the city. That much is indisputable. Part of it is also the fact that as we're going green, or even if we didn't go green, whether we're producing the energy locally, with many things going electric, and us trying to minimize the amount of reliance on fossil fuels. There is going to be challenges facing that, and there's going to be some pushback as well as some support for it. So where we are with Grayson is that back in the day, the city had come up with a plan to have 5 engines that operate on natural gas that would have ran 24/7 to produce energy for the city of Glendale and then some. That plan was not, I think, a plan that was in the best interest of the city, because there has been a mandate from the state to go completely carbon-free or carbon neutral, or free of fossil fuels by a specific period of time, which would have made those that large of an investment in those gas engines, I think, obsolete. Mm-hmm. Now, as we've moved towards that goal, and we're looking at solar, a virtual power plant in the city, or this distributed energy resources, which essentially comes down to solar and being able to manage our use of electricity more efficiently. We settled on a much less engine proposal, and we cut the amount of gas that we would be using by 90%, and the engines wouldn't run continuously. They would be only in terms of peak load. So during this last summer,
it was a brutal summer, man.
It was a brutal summer, and here's the thing: we're going to end up with more brutal summers. You're going to have more demand for electricity as people want to stay cooler for longer. And the question is, how do you do that? Well, one of it is you have to have a backup source of power, especially for a city of our size. And we decided to have a scaled back repowering of Grayson as we try to figure out how we're going to go more green in the coming years to meet those Glendale goals as well as the state goals. Gotcha. Here's a problem with it. When we get green energy right now, right, we get, let's say, like there's no wind energy being produced in Glendale. When we purchase wind energy, but again, let me just preface all this by saying I am not an expert in energy production and consumption. I know only what I know from what staff has told me and what I've studied and from what residents have told me. Like, it's just a piecemeal. I did not go to school for this, right? Yeah. It's not my background. So I'm going to try to explain it in the way I understand it, and hopefully the audience will understand it. When wind energy is produced and we decide we're going to tap into that, we'll buy that on the open energy market. There's energy traders. We have, just like there are stock traders, the city has energy traders. And these are people who are buying and selling energy, and they need to sell it and buy it at the precise time so you don't have overage and you're not. And it's brutal. It's a cutthroat market. When we had the energy, when we had the heat wave and we had the energy demand spikes, the energy that we were buying that was just maybe a couple of $100 for whatever the amount was had ballooned up to $10,000 for the same amount.
I believe it.
So people will, it's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
There's only limited supply and the demand increases so people can charge more to see who is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, what we need to do as a statewide, and especially for the LA Basin region where we have one of the largest concentrations of populations in the country, we need to build new transmission lines to bring in power. And what transmission lines are, when you're driving through the middle of God knows nowhere and you see those giant towers with the huge wires that are going across, those are the transmission lines that are bringing electricity that's produced in other places into the areas where people are using them.
Yeah.
And right now we have limited transmission and there's no new transmission on the horizon. What that's going to do is kind of like, if you guys remember the Gray Davis era,
Sure.
Gray Davis was blamed for...
I was just going to bring up Gray Davis.
There is a perfect storm coming unless Sacramento and our legislators fast-track the construction of new transmission lines into the LA Basin. Because everyone's saying, we're going to do green energy, we're going to do green energy. Well, that green energy has to be produced somewhere. Some of it can be done through solar. If people don't have solar, I hope they get solar. But yeah, we are going to hopefully get to that point through some of the plans that we have in place. And one of the ways we're going to help also get us to that is a decision that was made recently to use the methane gas produced at Shoal landfill.
That was my next point. Okay. So using the methane gas from Shoal, we're going to recirculate that and use it for power, right? Reusable energy?
Yeah, so there was going to be a gas line, right? So I voted, no, it won't go to Grayson because the turbines, the engines that will be at Grayson won't be able to burn the methane gas, and there'll be some loss. If we create a energy producing biogas using facility on the site of the landfill, where it doesn't have to be pressurized and pumped through 5 miles of piping underneath the city, for engines that wouldn't be able to burn them efficiently. If we burn it on site, we will be able to produce, at least for a period of time until the gas runs out, enough energy, according to what was told to us by staff, to be able to power 11,000 homes in Glendale.
That's great.
It's fine. It's good. It's what we need to get us to where we need to be. Even after that, let's remember, it's a finite amount of gas. Uh-huh. The reason why we're using it is because the other option would be just landfills produce gas, and if you don't do anything with it, it creates a very toxic, dangerous situation.
That was my next point.
And so one of the options, and I know some residents were saying, well, just flare it. Okay, well, if we flare it, it still doesn't get us to carbon neutrality because the amount of energy we still need to purchase or buy or produce by other means is creating more carbon emissions and contributing to the climate change and global warming. So you're not necessarily achieving the goal of being a better steward of the environment. When you have this trash dump and you have methane gas, burn it, use it for energy. Once it's done, we use that time to give incentives, have people put solar, maybe even put a big solar farm up there on the Shoal site to be able to power it. But we are going to have to rethink how we approach energy and energy usage in the future because demand is going up. We were talking about electric cars increasing. We just passed a resolution saying all new construction has to be with electric appliances versus gas appliances. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to have to get there. And my hope is that folks in Sacramento, folks in the federal government are going to help us all get there because they realize that this is a cleaner, better way to be versus releasing the carbon emissions into the atmosphere.
Critics of this proposal would say, like, the methane gas, would that not pose an environmental risk? I mean, there's already certain, contaminated flumes of smoke or whatever coming from Shoal, right?
Sure, but I mean, flaring it would also, there is a slight increase when you're using it to produce energy, or there is an increase, I shall say. But here's the thing, if you don't use that to produce electricity and you're just flaring it off into the atmosphere where it's just burning, you're still going to have to produce the energy that you would have anyways.
Yeah.
So at least this way, you're taking something that's bad and doing something good with it. It's not ideal. I don't know if you guys have heard of carbon credits and offsets and how like companies
No,
work.
I personally, I think it's a scam, Ardy. I'm
Well,
sorry.
no, in some ways it is. You're not wrong. What a carbon offset or those carbon credits are is
Oh, okay,
basically
yeah, I know.
I am a producer. Let's say I'm a company and I'm doing something terrible to the environment, right? But you're a company that is not doing something terrible. So by doing something beneficial or less harmful to the environment, you earn carbon credits, which then I can buy to offset the bad things I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm still doing the bad thing. I'm still causing the harm.
that's why I
but
think
you're
it's a
offsetting
scam.
it. It's like me being a complete degenerate, but you being a saint, and then me saying, hey, sell me some of your saint credits
Sure.
so I can appear as being less of a terrible
That's
person.
exactly why I rationalized it. I'm like, this is, what is this?
And by the way, that was an oversimplification of it, and I know someone will send me an email and make a long explanation of it. But we have to look at
So basic
I've
politics.
I've told folks like there are going to be times when we're going to have to do some things that are not super friendly to the environment, right?
Yeah.
Like artificial turf for our playing fields is one of them, right? And we measure the cost benefit analysis of what it is to have an artificial field turf. So we just had that conversation not too long ago. We decided that we're going to replace some of our artificial turf fields with artificial turf because they get more use out of them. And then we're going to have some other fields where we're going to try to put natural grass, because natural grass is better than artificial
Absolutely.
turf. And see how we can maintain it and find ways to water them without wasting water in a drought, to be able to also provide that. And hopefully maybe we get to a place, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, someone comes up with something that helps us do the right thing the right way without screwing over the environment.
I find it funny that Glorieta Sport Field, the soccer fields are artificial, right? If I remember correctly.
I don't know if Glorieta is.
But the baseball fields aren't, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's
we
still
have some
grass.
places. Pacific Edison has that. Pacific Edison
Pacific
has
Edison,
artificial
that's
turf
right.
soccer field, but then we have natural turf baseball field.
Yeah, exactly. And,
Are these located in China? Where are these?
no,
from?
they're in Glendale.
Oh,
They're in Glendale.
I mean, here's the thing with artificial turf. It's really fancy plastic. It's
Yeah.
very terrible to dispose of. It's very difficult. It is not the best thing to have out there. But, we also, I look at it as I'm a parent, you're a parent, right? We just went through 2 years of having our kids locked up. We have a massive child obesity problem. We have a massive adult obesity problem. And, we need to have venues where people can exercise
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
recreate and for better or worse, that right now, if you look at most schools, the school has artificial turf because of the amount of wear and tear that they get.
Dude, I don't think you ever played with this. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Arasujin and stuff.
Yeah,
and
the
guys-
soccer. You guys have
La
soccer.
Cañada, that's
Yeah.
right. Saturday mornings, we'd go play at La Cañada.
Yeah.
I was a goalkeeper. They have artificial turf. It's so uncomfortable. When you take a dive, they have little
Yeah.
pellets in the ground. I'm like, oh, come on, man. I'm pulling pellets out every 2 seconds.
I'm
every
sure
time
you're
I-
getting like scratches and scabs
everywhere,
and stuff. Yeah.
everywhere. But it is what it is, Like, what are you gonna do? But yeah, to your point, it's uncomfortable to play with. But I don't know. Call me a traditionalist. I like grass.
No, I love grass too. I think it's great. But we have to also be aware of what our limitations are right now. Here's what I would advocate, and this is what I want to push for on the council. I want to give people incentives to get rid of their front lawns. There's no reason for people to have a front lawn, a nice green front lawn, and then calculate how many of these lawns we have to get people to get rid of so we can then water one of our playing fields. Right? There's got to be a number.
Artie, you're making people give away their gas stoves. You're taking away their front lawns. Don't make me go Hank Hill on you.
Why does anyone need
Oh,
a
I'll
green
tell
lawn?
you what.
You know what? I'm with him on the front lawns.
There's something
There's a reason why.
soothing, guys.
There's a reason why.
Why?
It's not about the grass or the environment or anything like that. I just don't want to go out and mow anything. I'll just leave
Because
it.
you're not a family man. Let me tell you something, dude. When I was a kid...
I'm lazy, bro. I just want to go out and mow the lawn.
Let me tell you.
I don't want to pay anyone to mow my lawn.
Let me tell you something. And this is funny how life goes full circle sometimes. When I was a kid, I used to laugh at my dad.
Yeah.
He used to maintain the lawn. He used to prune the flowers. He used to do all this. I'm like, what are you doing wasting your time?
Right.
As a parent, paying for all this shit now? I walk out and I enjoy my grass. I enjoy my flowers.
So I'm telling you, wouldn't it be better if you
It's
don't have to pay for
soothing.
anything? You pay one time, you get the artificial turf, and you're done.
Nah, you're not going to do artificial. You might do a desert motif or
But
something.
even the lawn is artificial, right? A
Yeah.
real live grass lawn is artificial because it was never intended to be what was here.
Yeah, it's a desert.
And we're manufacturing this kind of ideal that we have of like, leave it to Beaver kind of, or the Brady Bunch kind of life of like mowing the lawn. On the East Coast where you get copious amounts of rain and there's seasons, sure, have a lawn. Here on the West, I mean, you go to Phoenix, Arizona, how many people have lawns in Arizona?
Nobody.
Yeah, I know, but
right? Like people have
even in Vegas. I mean, Henderson and whatever. All
I mean,
the
I'm not saying
because of their infrastructure, it's very difficult to get water to every house for sprinklers and central irrigation. I mean,
but here too, we take most of our water from the Colorado River, and I'll tell you,
Yeah.
the Colorado River is.
I've always
no,
wondered
not-
why
not
can't
in
we just take water from the Pacific Ocean and then just purify?
hey, that's a
Why?
logical explanation.
Desalinization.
Desalinization. Israel does it. Lebanon
can't we
even
do it?
does it.
Some places do. Some places.
I mean, we're right
Newsom
next
has
to the
looked-
ocean.
we also look. We had major torrential rains recently. They
Yeah.
had what they call it, the atmospheric rivers or whatever. A lot of that water, which could have been captured and used, ended up going back into the ocean.
But it's
So
illegal
there's-
for me to capture rainwater in Los Angeles County.
I don't think so.
I think so.
Well, it's all rain, according to Pueblo water rights, which are going way back. All rain that falls on the ground, including in Glendale, belongs to the city of LA.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean you can't try and capture it. I mean, no one's going to come after you.
What about
for
the rain that falls in the
capturing.
plains in Spain?
It remains mainly on the plain. All right, you guys are cultured. I like that. That's a My Fair Lady reference. The rain in
Caught you off guard on that one. That's all right.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's a whole, I don't know how I'm going to say this.
change hurts, man. It sucks.
It's
I
not
get
so
it.
much change. It's a whole thing of living in suburbia, the competition with your neighbors about having the greenest lawn.
Who cares?
The best decorations
Oh my
during
goodness.
Christmas. You say who
No,
cares,
you can
but
still
it's the
have great
truth.
decorations. You can still have great decorations.
Yeah, how would that stop you from having the decorations? I'd like to know.
My whole point is, I'm just saying, it's a one-upmanship on your.
You could
neighbors,
still do
right?
that.
You know.
You can.
Look, let me tell you guys something. I have some of the best neighbors I could ever hope for in the city of Glendale. Okay, they are super nice, and I'll tell you what happened. So a lot of people know my mom got sick in October, subsequently passed away, and my gardener at the same time just disappeared. He didn't show up, and I was dealing with the funerals arrangements and all this stuff, and I just didn't have time to maintain the grass or look for another gardener. And as Armenians, we have the 40th day,
Yeah.
and then we go to church, and then everybody goes somewhere and they celebrate the life of the deceased. So while in church, and mind you, the leaves were all over my lawn.
Yeah.
Nobody picked it up for a month, and my ring activated, and I saw 4 of my neighbors picking up the leaves and blowing them away. And after church, Angie called them and said,
Oh, wow.
And they said, we knew why you guys went to church for your mom. We know you're going to have people over today. We didn't
That's so
want them
nice.
coming in a house.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
So considerate.
this is Glendale in a nutshell.
Right?
This is
Amen.
neighborly love right here.
Right.
Because even though I grew up in a small neighborhood in Los Feliz, we never really had the kind of camaraderie that everybody sticks together in a big city like that. So it really touched me.
Plus, they probably knew that
Yeah.
your gardener. It was right around November, early December, right? That's,
It was November.
Yeah,
it was end of October.
That was the World Cup, so your gardener was watching the game.
He literally disappeared off the face of the earth. And you know what my mom said?
Mexico was still in it in the first couple
You
of
know
rounds.
what mom said on one of her last days? She goes, make sure you get the baklava or the neighbors.
Oh, wow.
She was still thinking about the neighbors.
They must have heard her.
And she wasn't even living here, but she loved them. It was such an awesome thing. But I love my neighbors, and that is what you feel when you live in Glendale. You can drive down and spot 3 GPD officers that you already know.
Guys, listen, I'll tell you this.
You know.
I am incredibly proud of the fact that I live in Glendale, that I'm able to serve the residents of Glendale. I am an unabashed, Glendale advocate, and it feels good to go to places and hear people say how much they love Glendale. And, throughout it all, during COVID, I saw and heard of some amazing stories of people just being incredible neighbors, people doing block parties and concerts and just checking up on each other, sharing toilet paper when people were hoarding it. Not the same
used
toilet
ones?
paper.
I hope they're.
Unused, right?
So, I mean, I got to tell you that I can't tell you how proud I am of my community. I love Glendale.
We can't tell you how proud we are that you're on the council, Ardy.
Thank you.
Long time coming.
Thank you very much.
Long time coming. What else was I going to say?
Where'd you go to high school?
Pilibos.
Pilibos, that's right.
Yeah.
You said Los Feliz. I was thinking
went
John
to
Marshall
Pilibos.
High School.
Yeah, well, Marshall's in our district.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
We started school at 8:30. I'd go at 8:25, and I'm still late for school. I live 3 blocks away from the school.
Why is Harry bringing this up?
What is he saying?
AGBU High won against Pasadena High. What are you trying to rub it into? Screw you, dude.
Harry's an alumni, Harry.
PHS alumni, bro.
Getting back to your point, growing up in Los Feliz, we had friends that
Love
lived
you,
here.
bro.
You lived here and everything. So we would come up here as a brash 16-year-old who flaunted, privilege and didn't care for authority.
kidding, Harry.
We hated the cops of Glendale because you could go speed limit, they'll still pull you over.
Mm-hmm.
We called it driving under the influence of being Armenian, and and it was a pain. LAPD never sweated us, and my impression of this city changed when I got married and had kids. And let me tell you something. This city kicks ass. Badass police, fast, effective response time. That goes for first responders too, for paramedics and for, everything. Let me tell you a quick story.
We just hired a new police chief. By
Yes, I want to talk about that too. I want you to talk about that too. But this is a great story. We just got back from Palm Springs. This is at the time we're living in the Woodlands. Alec was about 2 years old, okay? And the house had some old doors that didn't have knobs on the inside of the closets. So when the wife was putting stuff away, I was at work. And, Alec pushed the door in. And it was painted on the outside, so she couldn't get out. Now, she's in a locked closet, luckily with her phone, mind you. She was on the phone with a friend.
All right.
And my 2-year-old has no clue what's going on. She's freaking out that he might go to the kitchen, get some chemicals or whatever.
Yeah.
This is where the story gets interesting. I call 911. The dispatcher says, "Sir, we know. We already have your wife on another call. GPD is en route to your house." Okay? Within 20 seconds, she calls. She's on the phone with me. And she goes, "GPD is at your back door. Do you give him access to breach?" I go, "Breach away." They break my back door down. They literally go open the door, and my son was sitting there hitting the door, because he couldn't open it, and he was trying to get his mom out. So I rushed home. The cops left already. I don't remember who the officers were, and I called the station, and I told the police chief. It wasn't Karanides at the time. It was another chief. It was 2015, 16. And I called them up and I said, "Listen, you guys just responded to my caller at my house. I want to thank the officers for no joke, man."
What is this, Glendale or Mayberry?
No, dude, it feels like Mayberry sometimes, but that's not a bad thing, Harry. That's not a bad thing. So I got them all pizza and salad, and I told them, call them into the station.
Oh, yeah, that's
so they
definitely a
can eat.
Mayberry thing.
But you got to do stuff like that. Look, at the end of the day, the police officers are your fellow neighbors.
Right.
Okay, this isn't like LAPD where they live in Simi Valley or Long Beach or whatever and come in for a job for people they don't give a shit about.
Right.
Okay, these are our neighbors here, man. The 90% of GPD, force lives in Glendale.
No, not necessarily.
Really? Was it over 50%?
No, listen, it's becoming
Pulling
more,
numbers
it's
out of
becoming-
your butt.
It's becoming it's becoming more and more difficult for people who work in the city to live in the city, and that's just the factor of, anyone who's been on Zillow or Redfin or has tried to buy a house knows how
that's
expensive
true.
it is.
Right.
So a lot of the people who are in public safety especially will live in other cities. We have a number of folks who live in Santa Clarita, Orange County, but we do have an amazing police force, and we do have officers that come up through the city, a number of officers who went to high school here, who went to school here, people who are Glendalians, and they decide to work here because they love the city, and not just our police force, but our fire department. These are folks that I always say we have one of the best first responder teams in the country.
I think
we
so,
just
too.
at Tuesday, it was a council meeting, we recognized a battalion chief and a police sergeant and the police sergeant is someone who went to school here, went to Clark Magnet High. She's been a police officer, and now she's a sergeant. So They were on a flight back from Florida. They were at an emergency medical whatever training, and someone on the flight ended up having like heart problems, and our battalion chief and our sergeant just jumped into action, just like in the movies, while the flight is going cross country, and helped save this woman's life.
Awesome.
That's just kind of the people like we are fortunate to have, and I think part of it is having great people in our police department and our fire department. The other part of it is the people who decide to make Glendale their home.
That's right.
We are incredibly fortunate to have a diverse community. There are over 50 languages spoken in Glendale.
Okay, let's just, since you brought that up, not to cut you off, but percentage-wise, Armenians, what is do you know?
38%.
38%.
Yeah,
okay.
about 38. You can round that up by
We are the
about 40% maybe.
We are the predominant
Minority
here,
yeah,
right?
There's no community that has a majority in Glendale, but
Right.
the Armenians make up the largest minority for the time being.
Okay.
I say for the time being because things are going to change. Armenians
but at this point, perception is reality.
So getting back to our kick-ass police department, and actually want to bring our former chief on the show as well.
Sure, I'm sure you do.
And discuss that. I want to talk about two things. You were elected because Zara had vacated his seat to go to Pashinyan's cabinet in Armenia. When you were sworn in, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And the summer of love started. And I'm sorry, but it
was crazy.
So LA was burning, looting.
You're referring to that, okay.
Yeah.
Summer of love.
So the mostly peaceful riots that everybody was harping about.
Other than the fires everywhere, mostly.
So I want to ask you. How did you? This is baptism by fire, man. This is like national. This is like literally baptism by fire. You just got elected as a city council member, and you got war zones happening 5 miles away. How did you and the city council deal with this? Because I know as a citizen, we were ready to go to the chief and say, swear us in.
Oh, I can tell you that there were, our police department was definitely on alert because of some of the incidents of violence and, vandalism that had happened in other parts of the city. And I can tell you as a member of the council, I was very concerned that something like that may happen, could possibly. You're always ready for any type of scenario. I know this sounds a little cliche, but you don't really have much of a moment's rest. I remember when the Monterey Park incident happened, and then there was the incident at Crescenta Valley High School where it got everyone really tense a few days ago.
That guy was a nut job,
Look, there is always, you never have a moment's rest. You're always worried about, is this going to happen in Glendale? Is this going to happen here? Am I going to be alerted by that one text or email?
Sure.
And then, you have to spring into action and figure out how to make your way through a situation that you try and understand and train for or prepare for, but there's really no way of preparing. In terms of what happened with the demonstrations and civil unrest, I can tell you that the approach of our police department, the approach of our council was to obviously listen to the people who were upset, communicate with them, explain to them what we do differently than other departments. What's happening in other parts of the country, we shouldn't ignore and dismiss, right? There are incidents like in Ferguson, Missouri. Mm-hmm. There are incidents like that have happened between law enforcement agencies and people in other places. Most recently, we saw it in Memphis that deserve our attention and indignation. As Americans, we should be upset. We expect police to start the process of justice, but then we have a process after that. They are not judge, jury, and executioner, right? And in no society should they be. And as Armenians, we should be aware of that because we've been on the receiving end of people legally killing us, right? The Armenian genocide was carried out by law. It was the Ottoman Empire's policy of eradicating Armenians.
That's right.
So, anytime we see someone overstepping that bound, and I give much credit to anyone who has the guts to be in law enforcement,
Absolutely.
to have the gumption,
especially these days,
have the courage, because it is a stressful, it is many times a thankless job. Yeah. And these are people who run towards danger, not away from it, right? And it takes a very specific kind of person, and you have to make sure it's the right person, and the person who's doing it for the right reasons. And for that, we have to be very appreciative of them. But at the same time, we have to understand that we live in a society of rules and laws. Police are empowered to carry out their duties by civilians. We are the ones that ordain them to be able to carry out their duties. And so in that regard, like I understand why many African Americans are upset. You look at, prison populations, and you look at the disproportionate number that is people who are of color, and you say, okay, this is kind of screwed up. And there's a lot of things in our country that we are still feeling the after effects of. And I mean, a lot of people want to ignore those things and look at everything through rose-colored glasses, but where you stand depends on where you sit, and vice versa. And for a lot of people, they're still struggling, right? We're in Glendale. We're very privileged because we have a great city. There are people where it's much different, and policing those communities is different. So,
But yeah, as you said, it's not an easy job for them to police those
But
communities.
look, stuff like that happens in Glendale too. I mean, Ardy will remember this. Last year, there was a call. There was a traffic traffic violation, and GPD units were actually going to pull the guy over in South Glendale. The guy bolted. He just took off. You remember this?
yeah, the Atwater.
Yeah, the Atwater Village.
I actually don't know about
he
this.
goes through Atwater Village.
Yeah.
Now you're in LA
Right,
territory.
LAPD, right.
And he stops at a house, random house, apparently, runs to the porch. Cops are there. This guy gets a gun.
He had a gun, yeah.
He had a gun.
and it
He
was loaded.
shot at the GPT officers. He hit one of them. Okay. And then they've leveled the guy.
Well, they had to at that point.
But,
They're within their rights.
but to the point is, it could happen anywhere. To Ardy's point, like, this is what keeps him up at night, being a city council member and a city manager right now, because these types of situations, anything can happen, and it usually does, and that's the sad part.
We live in a bizarre time right now, in the sense that everything gets overly politicized. We were talking about earlier. I said this at city council the other night, when something like what happened in Monterey Park happened. Or you take Uvalde, right? Uvalde is a terrible tragedy. Or Sandy Hook, or all these. Like, I remember, or I'd like to think that there was a time in this country when something like that happened, and people on the left and the right would be like, okay, this is really messed up. This is effed up. How do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? And now when it happens, more often than not, people, draw to their corners, cling to their partisan arguments and say, well, it's not guns that kill people, it's people who do, or, it's mental health issues, or we need to ban all weapons. And it's like, well, there's got to be a sensible way forward. Look, I don't want to take anyone's guns away, but I do believe we need more laws to create more gun safety.
But we have them in California already, and
we have the strictest gun laws in the country, and things still happen. That's the problem.
It's not a gun issue we have, it's a mental health issue.
It's exactly
absolutely. I
he
don't
just
disagree
said,
with that.
as you just said, Ardy. It's about the arguments that take precedence over the resolutions or the problems that the problems that can be solved if common sense took over. And the problem is, each side wants to out yell the other side, and when you do that, it gets politicized. And nothing gets done ever.
Here's the thing. Let's build more places where we can care for those who need help with mental health.
Yeah.
Right? Right now, some of our the county jails are basically doubling as almost mental health institutions.
I will call it like it is. Ronald Reagan closed most of them down in the 80s.
Yeah, and so
we are. Our
we
chickens
need
have come home to roost.
And just like back in the day, now we're trying to bring in light rail and bring in public transit back and all these things. Like, we undo something and then we try to bring it back, and it's probably time we bring back institutions. They don't need to be the same way they were back then. They were probably rife with problems, but we can do better, and we should try to do better. Yeah. And we know better now, so let's try to address these issues, because I'll tell you, putting the weight on the shoulders of local municipalities, like right now the homelessness issue, it is really, really challenging to try and look, I know that people have seen it. I hear about it. I get calls. I get people saying, this person's on this corner. They've been here. What can we do to help them? We try to help them, by the way.
Yeah.
We try to help them. We try to put these people in housing, but unfortunately, it's like you take care of one person or one family, two more take the place. And it's kind of like, how do you keep up with it unless you have all hands on deck, every situation, not just build housing, but provide them with the social services that'll keep them, because living on the streets for years does a number on you mentally.
Yeah.
And even if you put someone in housing, they're not going to be able to adjust or acclimate back to the lifestyle that'll help integrate them back into society in a way where they're not going.
They
to
don't want to be acclimated back into society.
Some don't, and some
Ardy,
and
you may
those who
know-
don't
you-
is because they go through.
You may know the answer to this. Basil and I have this argument all the time because I typically see homeless people in Glendale, and his answer is, "Oh, wait, don't worry about it. The police will pick them up and drop them off."
No, absolutely not, Harry.
Yes, you always say this.
terrible. No,
You
that's
say-
so
we don't-
inhumane.
We don't.
That's terrible.
I've heard that. Time
I
and
love how
again.
you backtrack on the show, but
no
you say that when we're.
way.
By the way,
I
my
would never say that.
grin is
You
a
never
nervous
say.
grin. I
You
am not
never say the
laughing.
cops we'll drop them off in another city.
No.
But even if some people say that, it's because that has happened in other jurisdictions, that has happened in other places, right? And then all of a sudden people take that one instance, like you take one action that's a bad action by whether it's a public figure or a police officer or an agency, and then you apply that to everyone else because it becomes a simpler explanation of what's happening.
The reason he says
right
that is
now.
because he'd like to think of this city as saintly and pure and clean and no homelessness. And
No, but we have homeless.
Of
and we
course
have,
you do.
I'll
Every
tell you,
city has
I mean, there's even
homelessness.
we have a homeless who are Armenian. We have about a couple of hundred.
Yeah, the old lady at the Whole Foods, I see her all the time.
We have folks. I mean, it is a real crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. There's more we could be doing, but
I have the solution.
Here's the problem. We are
drop them
next-
off in Burbank.
No, I have the solution. Have Glendale host the next Olympics. Because you know LA's going to bust everybody out to Riverside like they did in 84.
Oh,
You know they did it.
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't know if that's what happened. I can tell you that
He was in the first grade.
The solution.
We were in the fourth grade, Harry.
I don't remember that happening, but I'll tell you this, that I think that the solution has to come from the city of LA and from the county, because here's the thing. We're a population, 200,000 population city next to a city of 4 million in a county of 12 million. And the number of homeless people is in the tens of thousands. We just recently did our homeless count where volunteers with staff went out and tried to see how many individuals we have living on the streets and contacted them, and we're trying to connect them to services. There's only so much we can do unless all of our neighbors, that's including our cities next to us, Pasadena, Burbank, unless we all work on it together genuinely and seriously, it's going to persist. And it is one of the worst crises I've ever
I don't know
seen.
if you know about this, but I'm sure you know about it, but I don't know if you followed up on it. Kassakhian in North Hollywood, Paul Kassakhian, he actually set up a sort of like a homeless refugee camp, I'd like to call
The
it.
villages, the small home villages.
How's that going? Do you know if anything's...
I think some of them work well. I don't know about the specific one. I know there's one like that in Eagle Rock.
Okay.
In Glendale, we have some homeless services providers that have beds, and we're trying to, as best we can.
Yeah, these are
process
set up as
people
tiny
through.
little apartment kind of things.
Yeah, they're an alternative to basically you can have a shelter where
Right.
you have people living under one roof in a building. It's just one way of addressing it. You know, some people, a lot of these things are just seen as, I believe, immediate solutions.
Yeah.
But the problem,
They're not long-term solutions.
yeah, the long-term
Yeah.
solutions I think require us to build more housing and to build housing that we can put people in while we provide them the services to get the help they need.
Right. Interesting.
I can tell you right now, the city of LA is not doing jack shit. Because my old neighborhood has bums everywhere taking dumps on Vermont and Franklin Avenue. I mean, they are. It's terrible. I see it all the time. They're just psychos walking around. When my mom was in the hospital at Kaiser on Sunset, I used to walk around human shit on the sidewalk. And this is my old neighborhood.
Well, I can tell you growing up in the
That's the-
80s and 90s in Pasadena, we didn't see one homeless person anywhere. Now, as soon as Metro Rail went through Pasadena, now they're prevalent everywhere.
Look, I'll tell you, it's really sad, and I know that we haven't touched upon this yet, but we should all be upset at ourselves, at our leaders. I say it's a Republican problem, it's a Democrat problem. I mean, the fact that in the wealthiest state in the country, in the wealthiest county, in the wealthiest state, in the wealthiest country, like we are not able to figure this out is all our problem, right? It's, why are we not able to do more? And look, I mean, you know how many of those people are veterans? We get a lot of there's a
Right.
lot of people who gave it all to this country, right? Who served in uniform,
Yeah.
and now they're sleeping under freeway overpasses. It's ugly, man, and it's
Train
not.
stations.
And I get it. Like, yeah, you know, we say, oh, the person's crapping on the sidewalk or they're yelling at themselves, but that's a human being. It was someone's son, someone's brother.
Right.
I mean, these are broken lives, and it's our responsibility in some ways to try and look after these people and show some level of kindness. And look, I get it. It's tough. It's tough because we have, like, I'm a parent. I read about an incident where someone who's homeless, you know, pulls out a knife and attacks someone, and they can't explain why, and it's very clear the person has mental conditions. I also realize that's not every single person, but it puts you on edge, and it adds to the overall stress. I don't know what the solution is, but you know, the best I can do is, like I said, in Glendale, we try to work. We have some of the best people on staff who really care about helping these people. We try to connect them with whether it's church groups, nonprofits, you name it. And let's not just assume that all of them are service resistant. There's a lot of families. I know of a young woman, a young girl who she has a mom, doesn't have a dad. Mom just passed away from COVID. Right? So now this kid becomes a ward of the state, or maybe becomes homeless once they get out of everything, because they were probably, you know, not able to necessarily go to school. They're not going to, you know, go to the best college or university. So we as a community have to embrace this person and say, hey, how can we help you now?
Yeah.
How can we help you?
You know, this is very reminiscent of the Great Depression era in Los Angeles. I don't know if you guys ever played the game LA Noire.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask. You don't know if we were alive back then.
No.
The answer is no.
No, there was a game that came out in 2012 or 2013 called LA Noire. It was a Rockstar game, the makers of Grand Theft Auto. Very cool.
Oh, I remember that game. PS2?
Yeah,
PS2?
it was PS3.
3, yeah.
Very cool game. It's basically you're an LAPD detective, fresh out of the war, out of the army, and the World War II just ended, and now you're a detective in LA as a rookie. So you have to do all these different crime solvings and stuff. What the point I'm trying to make is this: it's an actual map of Hollywood, Highland Park area, Highland Avenue, Franklin Avenue. It's an actual recreation based on photographs of how LA looked. Bunker Hill. Edgemont, which was all commercial buildings, used to be mansions back in those days. Santa Monica Boulevard and Fountain, all mansions before they moved to Hancock Park and stuff. The point I'm trying to make is this. There were hobo encampments back in the 40s in Los Angeles. Most people don't know this. There was literally a square block of tents. Tents everywhere. There's pictures of it and everything. This is what it reminds me of now, Ardy. Driving through L.A., the 5 freeway full of tents.
You know, speaking of those veterans, you know, during, I think it was Herbert Hoover's administration, there was a march by veterans onto Washington, D.C. to demand their veterans benefits for having served in, I think, the First World War, if I'm not mistaken. And they ended up setting up camp in Washington, D.C., and the government rode in on them on tanks and with horses and sabers, and you know, burned those tents to the ground.
Jesus, dude.
And how many people learn about that, right? In
Nothing.
history,
Exactly. How many times in history do we discuss interning Japanese citizens, U.S. citizens during World War II? That's one of the darkest points in our history.
Do you know that the only Medal of Honor recipient in Glendale history was a young Japanese American born in Glendale? Yesterday, Ominomori. He served in the Go for Broke Japanese division in World War II.
Wow. Died
Died in World War II in service to our country, but he was interned in a Japanese internment camp.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sad. Very
But
sad.
we don't know these things, right? We kind of ignore it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, you know, I didn't play L.A. Noire. I'd be curious to know, like, is it absolutely historically accurate?
It's absolutely historically
like, including
accurate.
like the racism that was.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
It is an intense look at how LA used to be in the 40s. It's actually
So it's not a selective view, because like I remember as a kid.
It's a dark game. bro.
One of my favorite shows as a kid was Happy Days.
Yeah.
You guys remember Happy
well,
Days?
it's the 50s was a different time.
Of course.
God.
Fonzie.
Yeah, the 50s,
The
come on.
Fonz. Hey.
What's there not to like about the 50s? Hot rods,
there's a
milkshakes,
lot-
burgers, and
it depends on-
McCarthyism.
Yeah, it's great if you're of a particular group.
Let me give you an example of one of the crimes you have to solve.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So there is a murder. Okay, this is a dark game. Okay, this is not intended for kids. There's a murder, and you go to the guy's house. Okay, his son was murdered. Now, the school that the son attends to, the custodian, okay, is a pedophile.
What?
Is a pedophile, okay? Now, during the course of your investigation of this one case, you realize that the father and the mother are going through a divorce. The father killed the son. Okay, you know this. But without evidence, okay, now you are rewarded or punished based on how you figure out the crimes by your commissioner, okay? I actually arrested the father the first time I did this, and I got berated in the game, and my watch commander said, how could you do that? You have to get this pedophile off the streets. I don't care if the father committed the crime. He's an outstanding member of society. That is how dark this game is. Wow, I actually did the wrong thing by doing the right thing.
Ugh. All right.
So, but the game got great reviews.
Can we go back to talking about trash rates or something, or something a little bit more upbeat? Like, this is very depressing.
I don't know how we got into a PlayStation game, but okay.
I know this is what it does. We let the alcohol do the talking. So, alcohol's driving.
I'm having green tea, by the way.
It's called Bros and Brews. So
green tea.
Can't even be coffee, so I can't really say it's a brew of coffee.
No, but Ardy's right. I want to touch up on these topics because we got to wrap it up, and I want to do a Q&A real quick.
Yeah, we got to get the questions in.
Sanitation hikes. People are pissed off. What they don't understand is that you guys kept it,
for 10 years.
For 10 years.
Yeah, for 10 years, 36% inflation during that time. We also decided to close down the Shoal Canyon landfill, which is going to have a major financial hit to the city's budget. We are going to have to take our trash somewhere else. That's going to cost money. Also, the state has put certain restrictions on us in terms of how we get rid of our organic waste. You now have to separate all food waste into a separate container.
Are we getting a new container?
You're going to have not a separate container. You can still put it in your green container or whatever it is that you use your green waste, but you have to have it in a plastic bag. So I've gone online and bought some biodegradable plastic bags from my Uncle Jeff Bezos on his website.
Uncle Jeff is great.
Yeah, I am not related to Jeff Bezos. But anyway, from wherever you can get them. I got mine from Amazon, and I'm sure others can get from elsewhere. Basically, biodegradable bags that you separate your organic waste in, and we have a little container near our sink. Still not perfect about it. I threw a banana peel in the regular trash the other day. Yeah. But the process by which we're supposed to eliminate the amount of organic waste going into our trash or in our landfills is causing a tremendous cost in terms of the process of doing that takes money. So that is also causing the cost increase. So there's a number of factors that are causing the rate hikes. I will say this, even after our cost of service adjustment, the COSA, Glendale's rates will still be lower than Burbank's and Pasadena's. And of all the cities in LA County, we're going to be about in the middle. Are we going to be the lowest? No, we won't. But we certainly won't be the highest. And like I said earlier in the program, no one likes to have prices raised for anything. I mean, you go into your favorite coffee shop and you have to pay 25 cents more for your coffee, you get upset, right?
25 cents? I wish it was 25 cents. I got 2 sandwiches and 2 coffees the other day. It was $20.
Which is about how much your trash rates will go up a month. It's the cost of 2 drinks and a sandwich.
So people on Nextdoor were pissed that you were doing this during a recession, inflation, people can't afford to buy groceries, and now sanitation's going up. So the point you just made, your hands are tied by Sacramento.
Some, yeah. Well, at least one of our hands is tied, right? Yeah. The other one we tied ourselves by making, I think, the right decision of closing down the Shoal Canyon landfill. Having a landfill in your city is just a bad idea. I mean, no city of our caliber and our size has a garbage dump in its city.
Let me tell you something. When we were looking for homes, we found a beautiful house up in Glen Oaks Canyon. And it was a beautiful mid-century with a pool. We fell in love with it. I had reservations about buying up there because I was so close to Shoal Canyon. It's the thing in me. I can't do it.
Look, I can tell you that it's okay to live there. It's safe. I know a lot of folks who live there. I think the homes there are beautiful.
They are beautiful.
If I could afford a home in that neighborhood, I would buy a home, even with the landfills. I've gone to golf up at the
we play golf there all the time.
It's beautiful. I would say that it's safe. It's clean. It just has it has a landfill.
But someone who has health anxiety, it's tough for me.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, because there are other landfills around the country that are absolutely terrible. Like, I know that there were landfills in LA. I remember when I worked in government relations and public affairs, there was this one landfill where every time the wind would kick up, people would end up trashing their backyards, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the landfill is going to close in 2025. That's when it will max out, where we can level it out. It maybe will one day be a park. It could be a source of solar energy. We're definitely now moving forward with the biogas
But there's no access
project.
to it. It's only on Figueroa, right?
Figueroa from that side, but you can access it potentially through the Shoal.
The Shoal, yeah,
Shoal
because it's
Canyon,
closed. Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
and it'll be, you can look at an aerial view of it. It is a massive, massive property, because for decades, it was a place where Glendale and neighboring cities threw their trash. Pasadena puts trash.
I remember.
And it was supposed to close in 1970, and it didn't. And so that was one of the promises I wanted to keep when I got elected to council, to say we were going to close this landfill, and we did. So unfortunately, there's a cost associated with that, and we now have to
the
spend that
environmental cost of shutting it down is exorbitant. I mean, so touching up really quick, we're going to speed up a little. Touching up a little quick on development.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to talk about, Ardy. The area north of Glorieta Park, there for a while they were trying to sell plots there, right? The empty land right before you get to La Cañada on the right side of the two, right by the police firing range.
Okay.
Which, by the way, to our Glendale viewers, please stop reporting gunfire after 9 o'clock in the city of in city of Glendale. The Glendale Police Department trains up there at nights, and the sound carries to us. So just know that. My fingers hurt every time I respond to somebody who says that. But thank you for being vigilant citizens. But that's why you're hearing gunshots. It's GPD. But anyway, that area was supposed to be sold. Are you guys still going to zone that for residential?
Well, it's not for necessarily. We haven't decided what to do with those properties. The city of Glendale actually owns a certain amount of property up there. We have an incredible demand for open space and recreational space. So we've talked with staff about, maybe putting a dog park up there, maybe putting more hiking trails, maybe creating more soccer fields, because soccer is incredibly popular
blowing
right
up
now
in the city.
And we have one of the largest AYSO chapters here in Glendale, in the entire Southland. The AYSO in Glendale, or this region, is one of the largest in California in terms of membership. So there is potential up there. We haven't quite yet decided. Here's the thing: anything that we do is going to cost money, and right now we are stretched to the max. We just, in the last budget, approved the hiring of 2 additional police officers, and even that is going to be a strain on our budget. In addition to that, there's increasing costs every year of paying to the public employee retirement system, what's called PERS, to pay for those people who retired, who we've made promises to and obligations. So, as my grandmother used to say, you stretch your legs out only as far as your blanket will cover you in bed, right? You don't overstretch. And so that's kind of the position we're in now. We got to figure out, what do we want? How are we going to pay for it?
I got you. So now, a lot of people are complaining about the congestion in downtown.
A lot of people are saying,
what are you, Magic Johnson all of a sudden? Remember Magic Johnson's talk show? And that is, so what's it like?
No, man, I tried. That was my weak imitation of Trump. A lot of people are saying.
That's terrible, bro.
I didn't.
That's terrible. I didn't even get Trump out of
Gilbert
that.
Gottfried or something.
Oh, my God.
Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, my God. That's my wife's car. Anyway, a lot of people are complaining about the
Rest in
congestion.
peace. Rest
in peace, Gilbert.
Speaking of, we should mention eventually.
He was actually the first victim of cancel culture.
I was talking about
He was
our comedy show tomorrow, but okay, go
We'll
ahead.
plug that. But he was the first. He was the first casualty, because after Fukushima, he made a joke on Twitter he made a comment about the tsunami and the people dying, and Geico fired him over it.
I remember that.
Yeah, they fired him as a spokesperson, as the duck.
Aflac.
Exactly. So a lot of people are talking about the congestion in downtown Glendale and stuff. And, a lot of people lived here 30, 40 years. They will remember the small town feel of Glendale, the local hardware store, driving 5 minutes from Verdugo all the way down to Los Feliz on Glendale Boulevard. Now it takes me 40 minutes to get down there from Honolulu all the way down. Sure. So, explain to these people that these developmental deals just don't pop up overnight. It takes years.
It does.
To vote on them and approve them and all that stuff.
So here's what I would say. It's complicated, right? It's complicated because we all want to trap the moment we're in and make it last forever.
Yeah.
And anything in life, you know. I mean, we're in our 40s and we were reminiscing what it was like to be in our 20s, right? And
so true.
when we're in our 60s, we're going to reminisce about what it was like to be in our 40s and try to remember that. You look at Glendale, like 50 years ago, go back and look at photos of Glendale. We looked vastly different today than we did then.
Yeah.
So just imagine what Glendale's going to look like 50 years from now, right? It's going to develop. It's going to change. Every community, every city, and every part of the country goes through change, whether we like it or not. And what I would say is that, you know, what we can do is try to make sure that the change that is coming fits with our needs, serves our community, makes hopefully life better and easier for our residents. But there are certain things like that are going to happen that's inevitable. I just got back from Tokyo earlier this year, and Tokyo, or Seoul, take Seoul for example. Seoul, South Korea. Seoul, Korea, a city that after the Korean War had been bombed so many times by the communist forces and NATO that you could not find a two-story building in Seoul at all. You go there today, and it is a bustling metropolis, very dense in terms of population, and people seem to live there just fine, right? I'm not saying that we want to make Glendale into Tokyo or Seoul or Manhattan. But what I'm saying is it's going to change. We have to be prepared for it. We have to plan for it, partly because the state mandates those changes through what's called the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA numbers. Yep. Glendale, in the last 8 years, all that construction along Central and Brand, which I wasn't a big fan of either. Still not a big fan because I don't think it was architecturally nice. It didn't really enhance the feel of the city in terms of its aesthetic. I have called it in the past the stucco Grand Canyon, and people remind me of that all the time. You know, and all of that was about 8,000 to 9,000 new units of housing all around the city in that period of time. 8 years. The RHNA numbers, the housing construction goes in 8-year increments. For the next 8 years, we've been required to build 13,644 new units of housing. Dude? I don't know. I mean, we zoned for it. It's absolutely bananas. I mean, it is crazy what the state is requiring. Here's my beef with that. We met our RHNA requirements in the last round. Other cities around us did not. So now we're being punished with everyone else, and I always say that it's like being in a class. We did our homework, no one else did, and now the teacher is punishing the whole class together.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not fair, right? Like, I want the cities that didn't build to meet their requirement, and then we can start building more in Glendale and making, figuring out where we're going to put like 13,000 new units. I mean, the one thing I would say is that what also upsets me about like the state requirements is the following. They're telling us to build more housing, but we're not getting any more or additional funding for open space, parks. There's this movement in some circles in California to go more dense, and I understand that. That's fine. But do it equally. Do it in Montecito, do it in Santa Barbara, do it in all those places too, right? Don't just shove it down the throats of certain communities. And then if you're going to do that, then give us also the money and the resources so we can build parks, we can have more police, we can have more fire, we can basically provide for the increase in population.
That's right.
13,644 people. That's a small town, if not a city in some countries or parts of the country.
Well, you could put 8,000 at the Sears, man. That's a massive location.
I mean, at the Sears.
What's happening at Sears?
There has been a housing proposal. A developer came forward with a plan to put in 600 odd some number of units.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has it been approved?
I mean, I think it went through stage 1 design approval, but there was concerns. Obviously, some of it had to do with whether the building is historic or not.
I see.
So
it's been there since the 50s. So it's been there a long time.
The good old 50s. Which I don't think the
Happy
50s
days.
No, I used to love Happy Days.
So did I.
But, it was, I think it romanticizes a period of American history and culture when a certain segment of our population was incredibly oppressed. And for that...
The communists? Yes.
No!
McCarthyism.
That's right.
McCarthyism, but also blacks and Asians and Latinos.
Oh, I know. It was in different times, and
But I did want to, when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up to be the Fonz.
Heck yeah,
I
who
thought
didn't?
The Fonz,
Who didn't?
Arthur Fonzarelli.
You know what's funny in pop culture? Pop culture changes radically with the times, and my daughter's obsessed with Dumbo. She loves watching it, right? So Dumbo is an inherently racist movie. I mean, all Disney movies were racist. I mean, you watch Peter Pan; they have the Native Americans over there, red face man.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know, the pirates are calling him a red face.
You mean
know.
the Indians without the dots?
Yeah, and let's not even go with Mark Twain and Tom Sawyer and all that stuff. But what Disney did, instead of actually butchering the classics, because they can't take out all that content, you got those, stereotypical jazz musician crows like Heckle and Jekyll in Dumbo. I remember that. They actually make a disclaimer now. They say this movie was made at a period of time. It's a disclaimer. It wasn't right back then, and it's not right now.
Hold on 1 second. I want to cut you off. Bill Maher has a great saying about this. He says, "Sure, at the times we're living in now, looking back, they seem racist and." We definitely would not be okay with any of that. But if we were to be living in those times, we would all be okay with it because that was the current environment.
Yeah,
okay, but
that is the absolute truth.
So here's the thing: once you know better, you do better.
No one is saying that we should keep doing what they were doing.
But here's the thing,
then.
guys. Let's bring this back full circle, or call back, as you would say in the biz, right?
Yeah.
So
yes,
we started off talking about the discriminatory, hateful speech that was made against Armenians.
Yes.
If we don't teach our kids better, if we don't try to do better, you open the door just a crack for the people who are willing to do those types of things, the hateful speech, to get their foot in the door. And once they get the foot in the door, they get the rest of their body in their door. And it could get really ugly really fast. That's the problem in our country, right? It's fine. Like, I believe that Huckleberry Finn should be read by kids. I do not have anything against. Mark Twain is an American treasure. He is one of our greatest American writers, along with John Steinbeck. People should all read their works.
Okay.
Just banning that book just because of a specific word in there, I think is wrong. You teach it within context. That's why we have teachers, right? To explain that.
Would you agree with banning Dr. Seuss like they did last year?
I don't know which Dr.
Absolutely
Seuss book
not.
they banned or what.
They banned all the Dr. Seuss
Look,
books.
so here's the thing. I don't believe in banning books. Banning books is like
Absolutely
Fahrenheit.
not.
That's some Fahrenheit 451 shit, and I'm not
Full
on
on.
board with that.
Oh, we got the mayor to curse.
No, look,
But,
the kids are having a book fair. I spent $100.
I haven't even cursed in this
Oh,
podcast.
The Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah,
man.
I love it. I went there today. I just bought a shit ton of books for the
By the way,
kids.
February 25th, we're having Glendale's first book fair.
Nice.
Vahe Berberian will be there.
Nice.
I think, is it John Cho, who was from Harold and Kumar?
Yes,
Will be there, yeah.
Very cool.
John Cho worked with Sevak Ohanyan, I think his last name is. Did a movie Missing, I think. Yeah. I saw that movie in the theater. Very good movie, by the way.
So back to Ardy's point about the 50s.
So
being
he's
a dark
connected
time.
to Armenians is my point.
Okay. Back to Ardy's point about being a dark time in the 50s. It wasn't a dark time if you're white. We all agree on this. The minorities got it.
It was a dark time if you were white and Armenian.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to.
Yeah.
The Armenians in Fresno would be harassed.
Yeah.
They would be, they were victims of racism. That's why the
Italians, Jews,
the Triple
Irish.
X fraternity was created so the boys could protect the girls walking to and from school. And a lot of people don't know this, and I've been trying to get Ara Sujan to make a film about this because it's such an important piece of civil rights history.
You've talked to me about this.
Charles Gary?
Charles Gary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Charles Gary was a victim of racial discrimination his entire life growing up in Fresno. He moves to San Francisco, becomes a prosecutor, not a prosecutor, but a public defender.
He becomes a criminal defense attorney, and he defends the Black Panther.
The Black
Party.
Panther.
Yes,
Bobby
the
Seale
Black
and
Panther.
That's
Huey
right.
Newton.
Huey Newton and Eldridge Kennedy. And
It's a great story. It
you
needs to be
never
done.
hear about this. I have black friends in the business, okay, and they're Academy Award winners. And I told them this story. They go, "We had no fucking clue."
There's a great book. It was actually the biography
American
of
Street
Charles
Fighter
Gary,
in the courtroom.
Street Fighter in the Courtroom.
Yeah.
Great book. And you know the documentaries that were made, the one by Roxanne Makashyan, I think Hrag Gedalian made one as well. All these tell a great story about an interesting character in California history that most people don't.
Nobody
know.
knows about him. They weren't even taught in our Armenian schools growing up.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen, Armenians have always popped up in every interesting historical event everywhere. It's very
So I was
we like
telling the other day,
to be involved in everything.
2017, Jill Simonian and me hosted the Armenian Rose Bowl Parade Association's gala at
And
the
I.
Rose Bowl. And I. Okay, grammar police. So,
I thought you were saying that because you were there too.
No. So while we're doing the show, Mark Garagos comes up and acknowledges a lot of people that were there. As being an avid sports fan that I am, I had no idea Armenians from Fresno went to Stanford. Most of them went to the majors.
Yeah.
There was a backup quarterback to Johnny Unitas on the Super Bowl team. Okay, that was there. They're in their 80s. They're pitchers for the Dodgers, St. Louis Cardinals, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Your team.
Yeah, I'm like, and I go in to back up, and I go, I am insulted by my teachers that I have no idea who you people are, and I'm
Which
so
is
proud
why
right now.
we're building an American Armenian Museum in Glendale
Yes.
to showcase this rich heritage and culture
Yes.
and contributions that Armenian Americans have made to American society.
Yes, and my friend Kelon Kelonian and his wife are big parts of that committee, so they're doing great things, and you guys are too. And I think they have another gala coming up.
March something.
Yeah, in March, I think. So let's get a couple of the questions in here. Harry,
We're terrible pitchmen, by the way. March something or other.
March
It's like
something or other.
By the way, tomorrow night at the famous bar in Glendale is our first Bros and Brews comedy showcase featuring your host, Ara Basil,
Well, he's pointing to Ardy.
right there, Ara Basil, and comedians Michael Passion, Darren Carter, married to an Armenian, and Noel El Grabri, who is friends with us. We're Armenian. So
Yeah.
come on down.
Awesome.
Come on down. We'll see you tomorrow at the famous bar. Okay, Harry Zakarian has a question. I have a question. Can you please explain this new mandate on the small business owners having to charge additional fee for utensils and recycle requirements?
Okay, well, some of that has to do with us trying to eliminate single-use plastic products. And one of the ways to encourage or discourage the use of that is by saying, look, I mean, everyone can pick up food, go home and eat it. If you need it, you can pay a fee, which hopefully will help offset the harm that the usage of plastic has on the environment. Think of it similar to what you pay now for a plastic bag at the store. It's just kind of the way we're all moving towards trying to eliminate plastic from our society.
I have a funny story about how wokeness goes wrong at Disneyland, downtown Disney. I'm a creature of habit. When we go to Disneyland, we walk through downtown Disney. I have to get a Jamba Juice, right? And last year, I went in there, and they gave me a paper straw.
Worst. I hate plastic straws because they end up they don't biodegrade. They don't. But man, I hate paper straws.
So here's my point. I go, do you have a plastic straw? She goes, sir, we don't serve plastic straws anymore. Here's a paper one. I go, yeah, but my drink's in a plastic cup with a plastic lid. Explain that to me.
Well, all right. Well,
Come on, man. I would post it on
The best
Instagram.
is they'll give you a paper straw in a plastic little cellophane thing.
that I haven't seen.
Like, are you kidding?
That I haven't seen. But I will tell you. I mean, with smoothies, like it's
Smoothies will
difficult.
warp the paper so quick.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
What's our next question,
All right,
Basil?
next question is because I'm going back to the beginning
Yeah,
of
we
the
got to
show.
go scroll up.
Let's see. Okay, we can ask the Museum of Tall. No, that's John's question. That was a comment. That
Yeah,
wasn't
that's a comment.
Yeah, this is we can go first. Armenian community is it. Okay, well, these are all at the time. We were talking about it.
There's some.
Let's see.
Did we end up with more than 5?
Oh yeah.
All right.
We did
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
We did
Let's
okay.
see.
How many? Oh, wait a minute. Is Glendale? What did I thought I read something here about landfills again.
Let's see.
Oh, is the current landfill part of Glendale? Is what Harry's asking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Shoal Canyon landfill is part of Glendale.
All right, so let's see here. All right, guys, get your questions in now. And
That's the question I got after.
yeah, I saw that. All right, so Ani's asking, Virgil shouldn't have clothes. Why did Virgil's close?
Because when was the last time that person who asked that shopped at Virgil?
I used to go there
Home
every
Depot,
time.
bro. Everyone goes to Home Depot.
I've actually even bought eggs from Virgil.
Yes.
But I will tell you,
Isn't
Places-
Virgil's a
places-
hardware store?
places-
They have eggs?
they did.
I didn't know that.
Also Christmas trees and
Yeah, everything.
places closed because of economics. I mean, if it was making money and if it was profitable and the owners...
I heard they lost their lease.
They may have. I don't know what the dynamics of it was, but I mean, it's a small mom and pop hardware store in a place where land is now at a premium. right? And it's like the same reason why if you go up to Oxnard, a lot of the strawberry fields, which some of the best strawberries in the country come from Oxnard, and so much so that Ronald Reagan used to have them delivered to the White House, right?
Gipper.
And now those strawberry fields are being torn up for housing. It's just, I wish, like, I thought Virgil's was great, but, a lot of things, again, change is inevitable, and it had to close down because I don't think it was making the money to keep it in business.
Well, Mother and I like to fly in those strawberries from Oxnard every time Gorby and Riza come into town to visit.
The only people our age get that reference.
Yeah, it's only us. No one else is getting that.
Anyone under the age of like 30 or 40.
By the way,
just sound like
I just realized my Mayberry reference no one got either. So
No, a couple of people got it. Rafi got it.
So my son saw a picture of Bill Clinton the other day and asked, "Who is that?" And I was like, "Oh
Because they don't teach civics.
no!" He's in the second grade.
yeah, give it a few more grades. Yeah,
He knows who Obama is. He knows who Trump is, and he knows who Biden is.
Let me be clear. Your son is a fine American.
That is a good Obama.
Thank you.
I'm going to say this once. I want you to listen.
all right, battling Clintons and Clinton Obama.
I did not have.
It's pretty good. That's a pretty good impression. I like it.
W is coming.
I have a question, Ardy.
sure.
We do the Cups for Cars and Kids every year. With
Awesome event.
Yeah,
Very
we
cool.
have a great time doing it. It's for the kids. And, it's with 3B Auto Brokers and Glendale Adventist. And
I always say that is a way for the cops to just keep tabs on all the
that's
folks
right.
that
That's
get
what I
tickets to
say,
later.
too. That's what I
They're just like, okay, that one, I'll see.
I said the same thing.
That's
it's so funny.
it's a really cool event. A lot of cool cars.
It's a
lot
great
of
way for the
collectors.
community to come out, enjoy the cars, and meet the first responders that protect them and stuff. So it's a great idea. Why don't we do more neighborhood and city events like this? Because when we were kids, we had the Verdugo Carnival.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was
I
a lot
remember
of
that.
fun,
That was a
remember?
hot event. That was the hot ticket.
It was.
item.
We would wait every
Yeah.
year in October to go to the Verdugo Carnival. Why don't we have this anymore? Founders Day picnics.
Yeah. Well, so
You
here's
know?
a part of that is a lot of the civic organizations that used to organize and make those things happen kind of fell by the wayside. They weren't able to attract younger people to help the organization survive. So the carnival that used to happen was the Days of Verdugo Committee, which kind of celebrated the Spanish heritage roots of this area. And, it's just, a lot of these groups are struggling to remain relevant, and some of them are doing a good job. Kiwanis and Rotary are still going strong, although
Rotary runs the Cups for Cars and Kids.
But a lot of the there was a book called Bowling Alone about how Americans, it used to be part of bowling groups and go bowling, or they used to be part of civic groups. People are just now you're talking about playing L.A. Noire. Think about what people do for entertainment now. They wear headphones and they're communicating.
That's all they do.
So
It's a different time now, I guess.
I commend what Cops for Kids is doing. We do the cruise night.
Yeah.
Cruise night is hugely
Huge
popular.
success. That's right.
We try to do whatever we can to make events happen. We're going to have the book fair on February 25th. Hopefully that'll be something that
I'll bring the kids in.
My dream, my goal would be to have a Chorovads festival in Glendale.
That would
Let's
be
do
awesome.
that. I'm down for that.
Right? To have different restaurants and different people show off who makes the best lula kebab or kubide or whatever.
That would be awesome.
Blue ribbon for first place or whatever.
That'd be great.
I think that'd be unique. We can do whatever we put our minds to. There's been a couple of Armenian festivals. We do a lot of things. There was a Vartivar festival at
Verdugo
Park.
Park.
It was
That's right.
massive.
Yeah.
So we do certain things. We do cool things.
Cool.
We don't always hear about. One of the things that's missing that we need to do a better job of aggregating all the things that are happening and putting it out there so people know what's happening.
No one
where it's
knew about
happening.
Vartavar, by the way. We didn't know until the day
About
of.
1,500 people did, or more than that,
Well,
like 3,000 people.
Nobody
or
knew.
something. I know.
We would have come, but
3,000 in a city of how many Armenians?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the park was packed.
It was.
Sure.
I saw the
was
video.
packed. So it wasn't for lack of people. It was pretty popular, and I think it'll probably be bigger even in the future.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like a good water fight in the middle of a drought?
John's hilarious. Can we have a hookah packing contest?
Hookah packing contest. Are there any real questions for the mayor, guys?
Does hookah packing mean like is hookah packing? or is
Hookah,
that
you
like-
back to hookah.
All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. I mean, we've gone about an hour, 20 minutes. Longer, maybe. No, longer. We're going on 2
No,
hours now.
no, we're not. We're at an hour 20.
Really?
Yeah, we're at an
Okay.
hour 20. We're good. It's our typical time. So,
Well, if there aren't any other questions, I mean, should we wrap up or what?
Do you guys have a lightning round of
well, we would if.
I would love to do a lightning round, but nobody's nobody's asking questions.
Did you go through the topics that we had chosen ahead
Yeah,
of
most
time?
people are comments. Yeah, we went through all the topics.
Okay.
They're
So-
just commenting on what we were discussing.
Perfect.
Let me ask you guys this. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's your favorite place to eat in Glendale?
Oh, good question. I got to go old school. El Tap and El South.
Oh, that's right. You were gonna bring tacos. Today.
Okay,
I told you I was going to bring it, but you didn't want to eat anything.
I'm
so
not a Glendale native or a resident. I mean, so I just know Glendale as I know. Actually, I do have a question. I have a question, and I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Have we capped off? This is from my friends in the industry, the entertainment industry, the Armenian entertainment industry. Have we capped off Armenian banquet halls in Glendale, or can they open it more?
No, they can open.
Okay.
They can open.
Because
there used to be
word
a cap
is
on it.
that there's a cap, and that's it.
No, there isn't. It's there was at one time. Places can. A lot of the challenges for banquet halls are related to the parking requirements.
I see.
And so there's some that don't have the same parking requirements because they were grandfathered or they were,
Right.
they came in under or after. But yeah, if you have enough, I mean, we've had new banquet halls open. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Baze,
yes.
what happened to our logo?
That's what? Oh, it's gone.
My favorite.
running late
That's
on
our
the show.
cue.
That's our cue.
That's our cue. My favorite place to eat probably is Fish King.
Fish King is great.
Yeah, Fish King's a local landmark.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great.
We have amazing food. Mario's Deli is great.
Mario's Deli is another
Yeah.
one. I would say Hot Wings. Ray's
Hot Wings.
spot.
Hot Wings, there's one in Pasadena.
Damon's is a good old throwback if you want Mai Tais.
I'm more of a
and
Taylor's
Chew
guy.
Cheese. It's not in Glendale. It's not in Glendale.
Bourbon steak.
Bourbon steak is great, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Rafi's place, mini
Rafi's.
kebab.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a lot of great food.
I don't want to say any of the Middle Eastern Armenian places. I don't want anyone pissed off at me.
Oh, Carousel Phoenicia. Let's like rattle it off. They're all great, man. I'll tell you.
Let's just say they're all great.
this Glendale is a mecca for great Middle Eastern food.
Ooh, I got a great question for you.
Go ahead.
I know why they were banned, but any thoughts now, considering hipsters gravitate to them? Are you ever going to bring lunch trucks back into city limits?
Oh, lunch trucks are banned?
Lunch
No,
trucks
after,
are not banned.
After hours. They were banned in the
No,
90s.
yeah, no, they're back now.
Are they back?
The county superseded any authority that local jurisdictions have.
Because when we were kids, used to be
Oh, yeah.
taco trucks. Remember on
Yeah,
Cherry
yeah.
Chase and San Bernardino, fights all the time and
Well-
stuff. So they kind of banned them from.
Well, they were
coming into the
technically
city.
not allowed to operate even back then, and they came up with very strict laws. But then the Koji Korean fusion taco truck kind of revived and kicked off that whole food truck trend, and the city kind of stopped enforcing a very strict rule that said you can sell truck food, but only by being parked in a location for no more than 15 minutes or 30 minutes,
15
which was a de facto ban on them.
Yeah.
And then they stopped enforcing it because it was such a popular trend. And then the county stepped in, and now there's totally different guidelines countywide that we adhere to, which is why you see more food trucks all over. So when the county passes a rule and it applies to all cities within that, the 88 cities in LA County, that ties our hands with what
You're
we can
actually
do.
right, because the other day when I was driving down Glendale, I saw the shawarma truck.
Yeah, the
and
shawarma
the
truck
taco
and stuff, yeah.
right there.
What I want to put up, I'm going to put this out there. I don't know if anyone will listen to it, but I want to see an Armenian Mexican fusion food truck. Like I want to see a lamajun burrito. Like use
I don't know about
lamajun as a
the
burrito.
food truck,
That's my
but
old joke about
I
living in
remember
Hollywood.
I remember a few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago at this point, on Glen Oaks, there used
Ara's
to
Taco.
be, there used to be a Zanku,
Yeah.
and they start
opened it.
Ara, who's one of the sons.
But I just want to see lamajun used as a burrito casing.
That'd be great. Yeah, it was Ara's Tacos. They used to use the actual shawarma. Put it in the taco.
They're ahead of its time.
All right, it's getting late. All we're talking about is food.
Food
All right,
at this point,
Seriously, now
yeah.
I'm getting
Thank you,
hungry.
guys.
Ardy, it was a pleasure, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. We'd like to thank the mayor of Glendale, Ardy
Yes.
Kassakhian, to take time out of his Wednesday night. Whoa, this is odd for us. Normally we're on Tuesday nights.
Because he had a city council
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
Yeah, and by the way, let me just say, if anyone has questions that they didn't get to ask here or they want to come and have a conversation, I hold office
Yes.
hours every Friday, except for this Friday. No, I will be there this Friday. Every Friday in Montrose from 9 to 10 a.m.
Yep.
Every Tuesday, except for this coming Tuesday, in Adams Hill at the Adams Hill Mini Park.
That's right. So 2 places to go have coffee with the mayor and have your question answered. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Bros and Brews, out.
All right, and don't forget, tomorrow night we will be at the famous bar in Glendale. We're having our first comedy showcase. It will not be our last. Tickets are available on itsmyseat.com. Just search Comedy Showcase on itsmyseat.com. And we hope to see you there tomorrow night. And tune in again next month. We will be back on a Tuesday night. And we will have another guest and more interesting topics. And we can't wait to see you again. You guys have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next time.
Stay classy, Glendale. Well, that was a good show.